Okay, so welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be demystifying fertility, conception, and the birthing process. Now, most of you know that when it comes to the concept of fertility, we mostly look at this concept from a physical lens. And joining us to demystify it all is our smart guest, Dayna Ruben. Welcome to Sisterhood Smarts, Dayna. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, Dayna, before we even start, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I think this is going to be a really, really cool conversation, because a lot of people tend, and I'm sure that includes me and a whole lot of our listeners, we tend to look at fertility, the birthing process, and conception from a physical lens. However, with your work and your background, you have found a way to look at the physical lens and the spiritual lens and somehow find an intersection between the two. And you have managed to come up with a way to work with both and incorporate them when working with women through their journey, pre-conception, through conception, fertility, and the birthing process. Walk us through how you got here.
Yes. Well, it was a beautiful journey, and it was a long wait. I am a late bloomer. So I got married at around 36, and we had our first child at 38. I was 38. My husband was around 39, and the second child at 40. So by no means am I someone that was in my 20s and it just happened quickly. I get the struggle, whether I had a partner or not. It was like, I wouldn't call it infertility, but it felt like it. I waited forever. And I always tell my children, you don't know how long I waited for you. So it's really fun to connect with them that way. But basically, once we became pregnant and we knew we wanted to start a family, so we were both, later on in our years, when we became pregnant, we were so excited. And then it dropped into me that, I have to actually push a baby out. And that's where the fear came in. But throughout my entire first pregnancy, I thought about my grandmother. My grandmother on my mom's side, I thought about both grandmothers, actually. On my mom's side, she had 9 children in the islands of Jamaica and Bahamas. So they were all home birth. And then on my dad's side, my fraternal mother, grandmother, had 5 children, and also all at home. So I had these beautiful reminders of what it used to be like before the process of birthing and the spiritual fertility and things like that were hijacked, if you will. Okay. So the birth cracked me open, and I thought about my grandmother, the one that had 9 children, so much that my son came 1 week early, and he was born on her birthday, and she would have been 100 years old. So it was as if she was communicating with me, like, I felt you, I hear you. I met your son before you met him. Those were the types of things that were coming through. And for that birth, because I was so fearful of birth, I learned about hypnobirthing. So hypnobirthing is where you actually go into self-hypnosis while you're in the birthing process, and you're able to really open up like a flower. The pituitary gland creates oxytocin, and that is what opens you up like a flower and gives you the ability to have a very calm, very peaceful, very manageable birth. The only way to unlock that oxytocin is to be in a calm state of mind and to feel like you're in control of your environment and of your body. So you learn all of those things, and that's what I learned through the process. I went to a training session called Blissborn Hypnobirthing, and I eventually became an instructor. Now, when baby number 2 came through, he came through right around a year. I could feel his presence, and I felt the presence of our first birth, our first baby as well, but I didn't know what to call it. I had no clue that there was anything that resembled spiritual fertility, just like yourself and the viewers. And it started to click into me that these were old ancient ways of connecting to our future son or daughter. So basically, the second baby didn't give me anything to go by. I had to go, I felt his presence. I knew he was coming in. And it's as if you're at a party and you feel someone behind you and you know someone's there. And when you turn around, you see them. That's how the spirit baby feels when you tap into them. So yeah, you can feel it. It's very visceral and it's very intense when you feel your spirit baby around and when you're open to that type of knowledge. So when he came in, he didn't give me any information. So I went and I found a book called Spirit Babies by Walter H.H.N. And I read the whole book, and I was already pregnant. So I wasn't doing the modalities in there of becoming pregnant, but I really connected with it. And the babies were communicating with me while I was pregnant. They were dropping colors that would help them to infuse them with certain colors. The first one gave me the purple or the violet flame. And I got a download from him saying, whenever I am tensing up, surround me with the violet flame. The second son gave me orange, which is the sacral chakra color. And he had a lot of intestinal issues when he came through. And we were able to help him with that. But I already knew to surround him with the color orange. So all of these things were happening. And as I did more research, I found out that in the ancient days, we connected as a group, as a family, to the loved ones that were coming in, the spirit babies. So as a family, we would all come together and we would all meditate. And we would meditate in a group, and certain babies would come through, spirit babies, to kind of introduce themselves. And when humans, we actually started out as fifth density beings. So we were already at these high vibrations where we could probably see the spirit baby in our mind's eye, hear them speaking. So this was normal and natural. And this is how it used to be. So, and then after that, they would go to the priest or the priestess in the temple, the couple. And this is ancient days, like back in Atlantis and Lemuria. So I'm talking 10,000 years ago, basically, or more. They would go and then they would connect to the spirit baby as well. And they would finally pick one. Once they picked the spirit of the baby, they would connect on an energetic level. And the energy that they created was called a conception cradle. Now, this is a term that was coined by Walter H.H.N. in the book Spirit Babies. And I use it because I think it's perfect to explain what's going on an energetic level. When you have your Kundalini energy right here, and then your partner has their Kundalini energy, it comes together and creates a cradle. So you could call it the Holy Grail. That's another hint from our mythology of what this is. And the baby basically nestles in the cup or goblet section of that cradle. And that's when conception occurs. And you can actually create that energetically. Now you have to have the building blocks to create it energetically. A healthy Kundalini. I'm not saying you have to have a Kundalini awakening, by no means, but a healthy Kundalini energy and a ton of minerals in your body. So what we're seeing with the infertility that's happening right now is that there's not enough minerals. So I can talk about that later. But from a spiritual perspective, we have our checklist, just like you talked about. Let's go to the acupuncturist. Let's go see our nutritionist. Let's go see our OBGYN. Maybe we're going to do like some Chinese functional medicine. Let's make sure we're on, folic acid and all these physical things we do. Where is the spirit baby?
It's always a medical, physical lens. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry,
yeah.
Go on. Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So exactly. It's always physical. Track your ovulation, do all these things. Stop drinking alcohol. Mm-hmm. When I went to see my OBGYN, she's like, you need to start drinking alcohol because you need to be happy. She's on point. I've been seeing her for 15 plus years and she's from India. She was like, don't stop until you find out you're pregnant. Then you stop. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, take the edge off. So I thought that was fun.
I've always known there's power in having that happy thing that makes you happy, not in
Absolutely.
excessive. Of course, anything in excessive is not good for you, but please, if it's chocolate that makes you smile and not piss off everyone around you, grab that piece of chocolate and keep everyone balanced and happy. Don't eat the whole bar, but
Absolutely.
I really like your OBGYN. Please give her a shout out and a hug.
Yeah, I have to. So funny. But when she said that, I was like, oh, that just it took the edge off, because when after you pass 35 years old, it's like, oh, I'm gonna have a geriatric pregnancy. They actually call it that.
But
After
that's also
35 years.
programming. That's a very negative programming. And when you brought that up, I just cannot help it. But, maybe it's my background, but there's so many women giving birth in Africa at 40, 50, 60. They're just hop, skip, and jumping. And, and there's a lady here in the UK. She gave birth at 65. Now, we were looking at her like, you're really serious right now? And she was like, yeah, I'm serious. It's my baby.
Wow.
But she was healthy, natural birth, all good, just happy. And I think that we need a bit more exposure, because this programming also, knowingly or unknowingly, it puts stress on women. When our bodies, I think now women are creating the problems because they believe the programming that I can't do it. My body is not equipped. My biological clock is ticking. So you've programmed your body to believe this. But the women who don't have this programming, because they're in that environment, they don't think about it. They're like, what biological clock? And people very close to me, I just wouldn't put them on blast, but they gave birth the other day at 45. And the happiest birth they ever had, they were driving the car and just So I'm just saying this, that we also have to be careful what we take on wholeheartedly, because those are imprints we put on our body. And then what we believe we create, and then, it becomes reality. Like, yeah, it's because I'm 30, but, you believed it. So your body believed it, Yeah, it's just, experience, exposure. I've just seen it too many times to confidently say what I'm saying,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. It's very true. And it is the way you think. When I went to my perinatal checkup, that's where everyone goes to that checkup. But if you're a certain age, you have to go every month. And they looked at everything and like, oh, you're doing great. Your levels are perfect. The baby's doing great. The heartbeat's okay. But we still want you to come in for observation. I was like, why? And they couldn't give me an answer why. I never made the next appointment, because you don't. Once you have that mentality that you're there, that you can do it, you're okay.
Yeah, now, you're really okay. You're really fine. Yeah.
You're really okay. And there's a lot of things that we've lost, sacred ancient knowledge that we've lost, not just the spiritual aspect of the birthing, but what you need in order to become pregnant. So there's a lot of minerals that you need. And I'm not a nutritionist and I'm not a doctor, so I want to put that disclaimer out there. But from what I've seen, when we were moving towards getting married, even before then, I was taking black kale, like the really dark kale, with apple and banana, and that was my breakfast. It was a smoothie, and that has so much magnesium and all the minerals that you need for your body. I didn't even know that I was creating this rich soil in my womb for the baby to come, but I was. And by the second baby, when he was coming, when I connected to him, whether you believe in, past lives or parallel lives or not, I connected to some of the lives where he was starving. So, when a spirit baby comes in, the collection of their memories comes in with them, and you get to tap into that, because as a mother, you're tapping into all of that information. So I didn't gain weight. The baby gained weight. I wasn't hungry. Sometimes I didn't eat much, but I had so much of that nutrition in my body already that the body was using that to create the new baby. So continue to, infuse yourself with minerals if you're having them. But this is more for folks that are, looking on that path to create more like family planning. For those of you listening, or if you know someone like that, make sure you're getting as much nutrients as possible. Magnesium is very important. And then there's a supplement called burdock root. It's 100% natural, and it has 102 minerals that the body needs. So we need a lot of minerals because our bodies are going through ascension right now, moving into the fifth dimension, the fifth density, actually. That's the physicality, the dimensions, the density. And our bodies are becoming more crystalline. So we're going from carbon to crystalline based, and the body needs a lot of minerals. So you might be using up all your minerals, and then maybe you had a miscarriage. The miscarriage could have been because you don't have enough minerals. I'm not trying to diagnose anyone, but there's something there. So I always talk about that because you need the body, and you also need the spiritual aspect to bring the baby earthside. So that's important.
Yeah, I want to go back to the spiritual baby, because I think we somehow, we got into something, but there was something I wanted to ask, because you said when you were talking about how you were connecting to your two children. Yeah. I was thinking, how does somebody know that that there is a soul? Mm-hmm. Should I say a spirit, that a spiritual baby is connecting to them, or for lack of better words, attempting to come through or would like to come through?
Yes, very, very good question.
What are some of the signs? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there's so many signs. You'll have a feeling towards the gender of the baby, and maybe you'll go to the store and you'll see the clothes, and you get this emotional tug of, like, oh, the clothes are so cute. Oh my goodness, look at this outfit. Like, some of those things pop in. You'll hear the name. If you've already picked out a name and you've never told anybody, that name will pop up here and there. You'll hear it on the radio. You'll hear it in conversation. You'll meet somebody that has that name. You'll get dreams. And a lot of people get dreams because when you're in the dream state, your conscious mind is turned off. So your subconscious mind is processing everything, and you are more open to getting dreams, not just from your spirit baby, but from loved ones as well, people that have passed. So if you have a loved one that passed recently or like a long time ago, they'll come into your dreams, but your spirit babies have access as well. You may see, if you have some sort of sign that you've asked from your angels, your guides, from ascended masters, or from God, goddess, give me a sign, like a feather or a coin on the floor, and you start seeing those signs a lot, that's another sign that they're trying to connect with you. And sometimes it's just baby fever. Sometimes you're almost like at the point of crying because you can feel the baby, and they're tugging on your heartstrings. And they may tug on your heartstrings 10 years before they're coming earthside, which is really annoying. My first son, he did that when I was in my 20s, and I wasn't even interested in getting married or having babies. And I wanted a baby in my 20s. I'm like, what is going on? But then I realized that it was him, and there's no concept of time in the.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I don't think they have a clock, right? So the Gregorian calendar. We're talking about that before coming on, right? They're not operating on the same system.
Not at all. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So what I've done with my humanitarian project and my future career, I have a full-time position right now, but while I can offer this knowledge to people, I'm going to. So my website, which you'll have in the links, Dayna Ruben, Dayna, DaynaRuben.com. I've created ways to connect to these spirit babies. And I have a Welcome Your Baby course that goes into a very beautiful way to welcome your baby. We have 4 modules in there. I've created 4 modules in there where you learn a little bit about yourself first, and you can do this with your partner. It's not just for women. Then you learn about trusting your body. So you trust your body. I have something in there where you meet the baby. And before that, we do a little bit of shadow work, because there's a lot of things in the Akashic records, whether you believe in the Akashic records or not, it is there. It's the tapestry of all of your lives and your soul and your ancestral lineage. So you can go in there and clean up some issues that you've had in I call them parallel lives, but you could call them past lives, because if it happened, 1,000 years ago, you would consider it a past life. I've had scenarios where women have had miscarriages or stillbirths and things like that in a parallel past life. And those memories, they linger from a spiritual perspective into this present day life. So if you haven't cleared those contracts, because you've contracted that somehow on a soul level, but those are old contracts, they need to be cleared out. So what I do in the Akashic Records with you, and I walk you through it, is to clear out those contracts. We've made vows in past lives of chastity and vows of silence as well. The larynx, this is called the larynx. It looks pretty much the same as your cervix. So if you have a block in the chakra, in your throat chakra, there's a block that is connected to your womb. And to open that up like a flower, it'll open up the energy to allow things to flow in. So there's a lot of different things and different nuances that can happen. And we call it unexplained infertility, but it's not unexplained. It's just what our scientific Western world is not talking about right now. So clearing those out. So that's a really good way to start. I also have a spiritual fertility course that I have online that I go into into more of the Akashic Records, the chakras, clearing that energy creates those, the conception cradle that we talked about before, and just chanting. I added chanting to the experience because there are certain sounds that connect to your spirit baby. So when I was making the class, and we have 2 kids right now, so I almost feel like I'm 2 and through. We only have 2 boys, though. I felt a female presence coming in as I was creating the class. I'm like, whoa, wait, I'm just making a class. I'm not trying to get pregnant right now. But these are the things that will come through as you go through that class. And it's pretty amazing and it's outstanding. And you just let it in. Just if you're skeptical about it, it's okay. But you just let it in, because it's where we're headed. And as the veil starts to move and clear away, when we're on this plane, we only get to see 1% of the light spectrum that's out there. So it's 99% of the light spectrum that we don't see. So we don't see these mythical creatures that we see in paintings from the 18th, 17th century. You do see fairies in those paintings. You see dragons. The year of the dragon, we're just getting out of that from the Chinese calendar. All of the animals are real, except for they are extinct. So we don't get to see them, but they're there. So it's really important to do it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was saying, and when you said last year was the year of the dragon, we are now in the year of the snake.
Yes. And that is really, it's going to be wonderful. The snake it's a wood snake as well for this year. And it represents wisdom.
Say it again. It's a what snake?
The element is wood. So they put an element and the animal together. So sometimes it's a water snake or, a fire tiger or whatever it is that year, but this year is a wood snake. So it's a mellow snake, but it's connecting to wisdom and also the snake energy. I watched your podcast with Ola, and she was talking.
That's what I was going to say. The snake is very much connected to the woman.
Yes.
I'm going to that because that triggers a lot of people. So we can jump over what I said. The Bible said wisdom is her.
Yes.
And you did say she is a symbol of wisdom. The snake symbolizes wisdom. We know it's used in the medical industry, healing. It's all over the place if you know what you're looking at. Yeah. But when you were talking about being tagged by the babies, I was just thinking, and the female energy that is tagging you, and you're like, oh, so can it tag your partner as well? Just for extra confirmation. I just crossed my mind. I'm like, okay, since Dayna is going like, maybe her partner will be like, okay, you get the job done.
Are you asking if you're already in a relationship or not?
Yeah, if you're in a relationship, I mean, yeah, do they choose their parents? Because I think a specific child,
Mm-hmm.
has to come up with a specific genetic makeup. I mean, you have to come through the way you want to come through, in the home you want to come through, for the experience you want to, you know what I mean? I don't know whether you're seeing where I'm going with this,
Yes.
but do they choose their parents, and do they tag both parents? Are the guys also tagged, and they start saying, oh, we need another baby. I can sense another boy or girl.
They do. You actually do choose your parents. I know it sounds wild, especially for folks that have had like abusive upbringings. How the heck did I choose that parent? So your best friend in the spirit world is it could sometimes be your arch nemesis here, because that's how you grow. We grow through resistance, and we go, when you think about going to the gym, how are you going to get bigger muscles? You have to break them. You break them, and then they come back together again. That's why it hurts when you leave the gym or 2 days later, because you're breaking down the muscles to build them back up. You need resistance. You have to go from 5 pounds to 10 pounds to 20 pounds. So we do pick our parents. And when you look at the reasoning behind picking the parents, it's all over the place. You could have someone married for 10 years and then they end up getting pregnant. You could have a one-night stand. You can have incest. You can have a bunch of things that creates the baby. So, and it's really hard to stomach this as an earthling, but the soul that's coming in, they will come in when they see a window of opportunity, and it's on their timeline. So I talk a lot about divine timing, because it's not on our timeline. It's on theirs. They come in when they want to come in. I would have loved to meet my husband 10, 20 years ago and not be, a really tired mom. But it's okay, because this is when the kids wanted to come. So you do pick your parents, and the genetics and all of that, that's something as well that the children look for. I don't think that there is any cookie cutter, oh, well, I want, to have parents with this genetics or that genetics. I think it's just the experience that the soul wants to have coming into the life of the baby's life as an earthling. And why are they picking Earth? Earth is the hardest lesson. You could go to other planets and reincarnate on other planets, and you'll learn maybe up to the next level. When you come to Earth, you jump from maybe 5th grade to 8th grade, things like that. This is like boot camp when you come here. So that's why there's a lot of babies looking to come to Earth. And it's almost like a bottleneck right now. There is a line in the spirit world. And it's important to acknowledge that. I'm just going to say this, because if I wanted to get pregnant, we could. But we're not doing that right now. That's how much I can see that line. It's like a line at Disney World. It is like way out there, and they do want to come. So if those of you that are looking to become pregnant, that's something that's important. And what I want to talk about with conceiving is, if you're saying the phrase trying to conceive, you want to take that out of your vocabulary.
Yeah.
The word trying puts you on a hamster wheel, and it makes you energetically stuck, because trying is not achieving. You would never hear, an athlete say, I'm going to try to win the gold medal. You would never hear a surgeon say, I'm going to try to go into the surgery and make it work. They either do it or they don't. So, and pregnancy is very black and white. You're either pregnant or you're not. There's no trying. There's no way to sell IVF, which is extremely astronomically priced, if you don't implant a way to stop the creativity of a man and a woman, because we're here to create. We are master creators, and we are a spark of God. So stop saying trying to conceive. I talk about that all the time in my videos on my social media. So that's just another tidbit of that. So I hope
Yeah.
I answered your question.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yes, you
Yeah.
did. And when you were talking about this, just even including the trying, I was thinking about emotions. You talked about the wording, but what came to me are emotions. You also talked about clearing ancestral energies and trauma and all that stuff. Can you talk about, I don't want to say the connection, but the relation or how these ancestral energies, the trauma, and all that stuff, how it affects or impacts fertility and
Yes,
conception, if at
absolutely.
all.
Yes, it can in a lot of instances. So to talk about that, I have to start from the beginning. At the very beginning of when man and women, if you want to call it Adam and Eve, whatever your vision and lens of it is, when the first man and first woman were here on Earth, they were equal. They were right here at an equal level. The female, the feminine, the divine feminine decided to become suppressed. So, and then the male, the patriarchy, decided to become the oppressor, if you will. Not in every instance, there's a lot of folks that are still level in their relationship, but as a collective, they decided to become oppressed. We decided to become oppressed, the divine feminine. So, because of that, we chose soul contracts that were victim lifetimes. So, victimization, abuse, neglect, shame, all of those things,
Wow.
the divine feminine took it on. And because we took it on and because we absorb, we are the womb, we are the soil. The soil, what do you do with a seed? You plant it in the soil. So the soil is dark, it's black, and it just absorbs. So we absorbed all of that negativity. So with regards to your lineage, there's something called the genetic line, just like what you're talking about, the ancestral lineage. It's the same thing. But someone in your ancestry could have had a miscarriage, or could have had a stillbirth, or could have had an abortion. And that energy, it goes down from one generation to the next, to the next. And you have to be the weakest link to break that chain and to stop it. And just by acknowledging it, you could break it by asking your angels or communicating on a prayer level, whatever that looks like for you. That those are ways to break those ancestral bounds. And that is really important. There are some lineages that you see and they don't have any problems getting pregnant, and then you see some other ones and everyone in the family has had a miscarriage or has had something happen to them. So it's in the DNA, and the DNA is basically made out of water, and water has memory. If you take 2 glasses of water and you say hate speech to one of them and loving things to the other one, you'll see a difference in the water. One water will stay clear, the other one will get all grimy and yucky. So it's important to see it on an esoteric level and to really connect to that and to clear it. And the Akashic Records, it's a healing exercise that I have on my website. And I made it a la carte because sometimes that's all you need to do. All you need to do is go in there and clear the situations that have happened in the past, and that will remove the block, and you can move forward to the spirit baby and to becoming pregnant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned IVF in passing, but I want us to touch on this because let's just face it, this is, there's a lot of factors that come into play in the modern age.
Mm-hmm.
There's diet, there's pollution, there's so many things besides the things we've talked about. So some women this might be the only option for them to achieve their dream, is to go through IVF treatment or surrogacy. And they might also not have a partner, but have the deep desire to have a child. So I'm just wondering, what are the spiritual, how does IVF and surrogacy fit in the spiritual perspective, per se?
Yeah. So as we evolve, we find
Mhm.
tools that will help us. So IVF is a very viable way to bring in a child. Now,
Mhm.
whether it's IVF or it's a natural conception, when the sperm hits the egg, there's a spark of light. And for some people, they do say that that is when a fraction of the soul imprints into that, and you do have a baby, even when you just have a zygote. So they're both very spiritual on the same level. So I personally, I don't see anything different between IVF and natural pregnancy. So if you're going into IVF thinking that it's not going to be as spiritual or it's not going to be as juicy, it is. There is still that spirit baby that wants to come. And to be honest with you, the spirit babies, they don't mind how they come earthside. They're just looking at timing. Timing is their number one thing, because
Wow.
they have to imprint themselves at a certain time to have the zodiac chart, to have the planets in a certain placement, things like that. And what we do to help them is that we offer them, you know, a very beautiful home to grow in. And then we offer them, as we move forward, my work on this planet is to make sure that women know that they don't have to have these horrible birth stories. And we can go and talk about birth if you're ready to jump into that.
Yes, please jump
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Okay. So when we look at society right now, we have birth rates of around, I think it's around 30% cesarean section. That's high because only 5% of births are high risk. And a lot of that high risk is the age. And now we know that age doesn't really matter. You've met women that are, you know, in their 50s having babies and things like that. So what is that high risk? That high risk might be, you know, high blood pressure while you're preeclampsia is what that's called. Maybe you have the placentas covering the cervix, so the baby can't even get out. That would require a C-section. But you know, older age, overweight, does that really require a C-section? No. So
and just to throw this in, Dayna, some women are requesting it.
Yeah.
In in Asia and Africa, it's a trend. They're literally requesting the cesarean. But yeah, just go on. I just wanted to throw that in there. Yeah,
that's true.
Because it does impact the numbers as well. You know, they're actually going in and saying, "This is what I want."
And that all started approximately 100, 150 years ago, when you had very affluent women that, instead of having home births with midwives, which was the norm back in the day, they decided to go into the hospital and get medicated. So they went in, they created the epidural. The first epidurals had cocaine in them. They don't anymore, to my knowledge. I did some research. But they used to. They used to have cocaine. So they were shooting you up with cocaine, which is scary, to say the least. But that aspect became, you know, if you know, the affluent ladies can do it, maybe I can do it too. So it became this thing where the medical system took over birthing. And that's where we have these disconnects, where we do things completely opposite. We used to have birthing chairs, a chair which has like a space inside of it. It's almost like a donut. And the woman would sit in the birthing chair, and that's how they would birth. My grandmother that had 9 children on the islands, she had to open herself up. They put a pot of steaming water underneath her, and she was either squatting underneath it, or maybe they did have some sort of way for her to sit down and have the steam come in. And that is a practice that still happens today, steaming the vaginal area to open it up. But all of these things were lost. All of the, you know, the midwife and the comfort of the home. Now you go into the hospital, they want you to lay down on your back. How are you going to push a baby out when you're on your back? You need gravity. Gravity is pushing everything down. Do we do a number 2 on our back? No. So why are we expected to lay flat on our back? So that is something that has happened to society. It creates a lot of tension and a lot of friction. And because of that, then because they're putting us in a bad position, then they're saying, oh, birth is painful. You need an epidural, you need a Tylenol, you need this, you need that. And then, no, let's just do it for you. Let's just do this, you know, have a cesarean section. So even though the medical industry has saved many babies' lives, I don't want to disrespect that side of it. But at the same time, it's become hijacked. So we have to take it back. So what do? We go back to the origins. So what I teach is making sure that you know that you are in control, that you can ride the wave of a contraction and accept the feelings and the sensations. And as you do that, and as you take away and so you strip away the fear of the pain, we face a lot of fears in the classes that I teach. And we also realize that you have to create the environment. Most of the environment is up here. So what I like to say is that labor doesn't happen between the legs, it happens between the ears. There's a lot of things going on in your head that you could make birth more manageable. And as we go through the class at the very end, we are able to put a time frame on your labor. So the time frame for the bliss-born hypnobirthing is 5 hours. And 80% of the women that take bliss-born hypnobirthing, they have their babies under 5 hours. Our first my first labor was 3 hours, and that included a 40-minute car ride to the hospital because I had a hospital birth at the beginning. The second one, I was like, I could have done that at home. So I scheduled my home birth. Baby came 6 weeks early, so he came under 2 hours. So, and that was my goal, to like beat the first 3 hours. I'm like, I can do it faster than that. So, but there's no reason for you to be in labor for over 5 hours. And that's what I loved about the bliss-born hypnobirthing, because I heard about the women that were in labor for 72 hours and 40 hours of labor, and you're fighting yourself. You're fighting every time you get that contraction. You're fighting it, but you're supposed to ride it like a surfer and get through it and get to the other side of it. And that's when the body opens up. When I got to the hospital, I was 10 centimeters dilated. I was so normal and natural and calm. They wanted me to fill out paperwork. I was like, no, check me. And they checked me and they're like, oh my goodness, you're 10 centimeters dilated. I went straight up to the ward to, do all the things. So that's how it is. We also, on a second baby, I was in the morning. It was 6 weeks early. So the baby was 6 weeks early. So the midwife couldn't interject because those are the laws in Florida where I live. And we were going to go to the hospital. I'm like, I'm not doing this again. I don't want to go to the hospital. And something just said, so don't go to the hospital. So I stayed right there in front of the door, our front door. My husband called 911 and I got on my hands and knees and he caught the baby, and it's all on video. I'll send you that link. The audio. It's not video, it's audio. So you don't see anything.
That's fine. But yeah, either way.
But it was a normal, natural, easy birth. So that is one thing that I really want to proliferate on the planet, is to make people aware that you don't have to opt into a C-section because you don't believe in your body. We have to start taking the reins and bringing it back. There's a certain magic that happens when the baby goes through the vaginal canal. It's called the birth portal by some folks in the industry that talk about this practice of allowing the baby to go through that portal, because it's a portal. Our womb is actually a stargate. And the baby is coming from the ethers, moving down into the earth, and they are imprinted at birth. So anything you feel while you're birthing, the baby feels it as well, and it imprints. Some people say that when you have a cesarean section, the baby is imprinted with being rescued. So because they were birthed by someone pulling them out, they go through life thinking someone will rescue me, as opposed to a baby coming out and pushing themselves out of the canal using gravity, not being flat on your back, not like forcefully pushing themselves out, but having that help. And they go through life and they attack, and they take the initiative, the baby. Now, all of these things can be worked on, and you do your shadow work, you clean it up, but why not start from the get-go? And then also, when you allow the baby to go through the vaginal canal, you create the microbiome, the environment that the baby needs in order to increase their immune system. Mm-hmm. So both the levels eventually level out, like a C-section baby versus a vaginal baby. They level out at around a year, but that baby is much, much healthier that first year because they have the microbiome. Microbiome is like the bacteria and everything that they need in order to get a very healthy immune system. So going through the vaginal canal helps you with that. And what they've done is they swabbed the cells in the baby after a C-section versus a vaginal birth, and they saw that the babies with a C-section, they had cells that connected with the latex on the gloves, that the air of the room that the baby was born in, as opposed to the mother's information in their system. And then also, breastfeeding. Some people can't breastfeed, but if you can, it is so beneficial for the baby. And all the little things that we've gone away from, like the placenta. The placenta, you're not supposed to cut the cord right after birth. It's supposed to really go white. And some people call it a lotus birth, where you have the baby and you let the placenta and the umbilical cord just fall off by itself. The best thing to do with the placenta is to put it in the ground and plant a tree over the placenta and allow that child to connect to that tree while they're growing up. Trees are amazing, and it's connecting to Mother Earth as well. So they have this synergy with the tree. And it's a beautiful thing. So there's so many little things that we've lost touch with, and I'm so excited to bring it back to humanity, because we need to get back to Earth and to Mother Earth. One of the things that I realized that was helping me get pregnant is that I would go grounding. I would take my socks and shoes off, bare feet on ground, rock, soil, sand, dirt, grass, whatever I could get my hands on that day. And because I live in Florida, which is sunny year round, I was able to do it year round. So I was connecting to Mother Earth, and Mother Earth really wants you to connect with her. In ancient days, we did offer our DNA to Mother Earth, which Ola talked about. And I know it's a little squeamish, but
it is squeamish.
It is squeamish. But there is just the stem cells alone. And what you offer to Mother Earth is amazing. So if it's something that you want to do more research about, I still haven't done a video on it because of the squeamishness, but I need to break that glass ceiling and just get it done.
You need to break the ceiling, because Japan is purchasing it. And y'all need to go to Ola's video to know what we're talking about.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Until Dayna is ready to do hers.
Exactly.
Japan is purchasing it. So, I'll just leave it there. Yeah. There is a lot of scientific research that backs that up. But I wanted to go back to the birth canal, thing that you're talking about. When the birth takes very long, and I know this from a colleague of mine who gave birth naturally in the hospital on her back, and she was this close to them switching to a cesarean. And the reason was, they said that her birthing process was taking too long and the child was tired. Mm-hmm. And when we're talking about the pushing of the child coming through the birth canal, I think maybe you can also talk about this, because if it takes too long, they might have to switch. When you talked about the gravity and the line, it did take so long that there was, cesarean, emergency cesarean is to save the life of the child and the mother. It's a life-saving decision that they had to make. Mm-hmm. And in the nick of time, the child came out, but she told me that he had lost so much air. He came out super exhausted, very weak, because it took so long. Yeah. Let's talk about this a little bit.
Absolutely.
You can, yeah.
So the protocol of being flat on your back, it slows down labor. So it's like being on a track and having a chain and ball on you, but they shoot the gun and they expect you to run around the track with a chain and ball around you. It is extremely exhausting for the mother and also for the baby. So unfortunately, they're telling you one thing and it's inverted, because you really need to be doing something else. So that's number one. When my husband called 911, the woman, the operator, she was trained to say, hey, tell the mother to lay flat on her back. And I was thinking, oh, no. I am home. You're on the phone. This is my turf. I'm going to do it my way. And I knew the baby was going to be born at home, probably while the ambulance was looking for our house, but I didn't care, because I was not going to lay flat on my back and give up my my purpose and to give up the amount of time that I was going to be in labor. I knew all of that would go away when I was flat on my back. So that's number one. So if you can get pushed up, if you want to have those hospital births, which my first one was a hospital birth. If they can put some pillows behind you, or you go somewhere where they actually have a tub of water births are amazing. That was the goal for the second birth, but it came too fast. But anyways, that is something, because the water, when you move into the water, our cells are made out of water. The baby's already in water. So the transition from water to water is exceptional. And from a breathing aspect, most of the breathing and the oxygen is coming from the placenta, because they're breathing in the amniotic fluid in the womb. So when they move into the water, they're not going to breathe until their nose and their mouth hits the air. That's when they start breathing. So that's when you see the videos of women giving birth in water, and the baby's probably underneath the water for like a minute, it's floating around before they want to get into the air. They're okay, because they came from water, moving into water, and they're breathing through the placenta. And that's why we don't want to cut that cord until it's completely.
Oh yeah, they're still connected, so they're still getting. Okay, it's a mimicking the womb. Yeah,
because they're not breathing air in the womb, right?
Yeah. The placenta,
Yes. So all of these ancient tools, they need to come back. So what I would say for the woman that was really tired, it was, I'm so sorry you went through that. You were
the baby was
tired.
The baby,
Yeah, the baby was really tired. Now, there's two things happening when you're giving birth. The baby is pushing themselves using gravity. If the gravity is not there, they have to push even harder. Wow. And the womb, the cervix, everything is contracting. You could be unconscious while you're giving birth, and you would be able to give birth because the body knows what to do. The body is contracting, and the baby is pushed out. It could be pushed out on its own. So, and it might happen faster because you're not in the way. You're not stopping it with the fear. So there's a lot of things that go into it. I am a big proponent of pick the best way, pick the environment that you want to be in for the birth, but walk in knowing exactly what you want to do. And I'm ready to do a video about this, how birth is backwards or birth is broken. I did one like that a while back. Why are we're so excited when we get pregnant, but we're not trained on the birth. Like that is the goal. The getting pregnant is like the wedding, but the birth is the success of the marriage. Like that is what you have to work on, not just the wedding day, because the wedding day comes and goes. So you have to really, for those of you that are scared of it, we've been trained to be scared of it. I was scared and I didn't know why. And our society trains us to be scared so that they can capitalize on the birth. After the second birth, I called the insurance company because I had some issues about our bill because we ended up in the hospital, but even though I had the baby at home. And the person on the other end, the insurance company, who's like, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but the most profit that we get out of any sort of billing is through birth. Because the woman goes and they put you in all these positions that you shouldn't be in, but the woman's really doing most of the work by herself, unless there is some sort of intervention that is needed. And unfortunately, I did some research about the epidurals, and the epidurals create an opening for parasites to come into the body. I'm not going to confirm that parasites are in the epidural, in the actual fluid, but it's a way for parasites to come into the body. And also, there are chemicals in the epidural that creates postpartum depression. And when I found that out, I was really upset. And it's not just the epidural, it's Pitocin. They give you Pitocin, which is synthetic oxytocin, which is what I was talking about. The pituitary gland creates this, but they've created the Pitocin in a lab and they give it to you. When you get Pitocin in the hospital, it slows down your birth and it makes your contractions longer and harder. And that's why your birth becomes long and hard as well. And they call it pit to distress in the hospital. They don't tell you that. The doctor and the nurse are not going to tell you that's what they call it, but they call it pit to distress. And distress means that the baby is in distress and then you have to run to get a C-section.
Yeah, that's
So
the word actually my friend used. The baby was in distress.
mhm. Yeah. So she probably had Pitocin, which also made the whole labor longer and harder. So these are the things I teach in the course to make sure you know what you're walking into. Because when even though I loved my first OBGYN, she told me to drink the vodka, she told me to have fun. She was really smart and she knew what she was talking about. She said nothing about the birth. I had to go find it on my own. And I'm like, wait a second, why aren't you setting me up for success? The success was take an epidural, take a Tylenol, and just wing it. I'm not doing that. I wanted to feel all of it. And to be honest with you, and I don't know how to explain this to anyone other than someone that has given natural childbirth, when you have those sensations running through you, you can feel the power that creates whirls in your womb pushing that baby out. I don't know how I connected or tapped into that, but I was given the strength, maybe by God, the goddess, by my ancestors, to feel what it feels like to create a universe. And it was intense, but I was so happy that I didn't have anything in the way. I didn't have any medication. I didn't have anything else. And I could feel that. And I know what that feels like. And once you feel it, you do want to feel it again. Maybe that's why our kids are like 19 months apart. But I just knew that it came from me. I was built to give birth. My hips are a certain way and they expand and then they contract on their own after you're done with the birth. And the second birth, I had a Tylenol the next day. I didn't take anything. So it sounds scary, but we do everything in the class to make sure you're set up for success. We train your partner, whoever that is, whether it's your actual partner, your husband, your mom, your doula. We train them to help you and to manage the room while you're giving birth. So you're not worried about the lights going down or, getting a pillow or your birth plan. You just know that person is taking care of that. And I started calling my husband my daddy doula because he was my doula. Like we basically train that in the course that I offer. So everything is set up. You know what you're walking into. You know how to handle the contractions. You know what position you want to be in. You know how this is called hip squeezes. We teach that. We teach you how to move through the contractions with ease and grace and use them to propel yourself to the next level of the actual birth so that you're not like cowered in a corner, scared. Birth is just like how the baby was created, the intimacy. So you want, if you're having an intimate relationship with your husband, that's the same environment you want to create for your birth. So you wouldn't really have an intimate relationship in the hospital room with a bunch of lights on and people walking in and out of the room. That's not the ideal situation for birth. So just thinking about all of those things, I don't want to downplay the doctor or your OBGYN. They know a lot of things from a clinical perspective, but that spiritual aspect of having that baby come earthside and having them imprinted with the best sort of emotional situation, that is really important because we are imprinted on so many levels when we come earthside. So being imprinted with a calm mother creates a calm baby. And when I had both babies had to go into daycare because I was still working full time and a bunch of things. So I had my maternity leave, but I would always, when I picked them up from daycare, like, your baby is so calm compared to the other babies that had these traumatic births and they would cry because they were imprinted with that trauma. Yeah.
Oh my God, Dayna, when you were talking about intimacy, I know a lot of women will watch this. They will feel cheated in a sense because I know right now, the birthing process, for lack of better words, it looks to me as a very traumatic experience. The way it's done, in the hospital, I'm just going to say it. There's a lot going on there. The bright fluorescent lights, when you were talking through this, I was just thinking of the baby comes out to this from a dark, you said from darkness in the space, in water, in this peaceful, close place to this bright fluorescent lights in a very sterile environment with all these new smells. The hospital has all these antiseptic, it's not. I was just thinking of all these things, and then in some African countries, I'm not going to say the countries, it's not necessary. They don't allow the fathers in the delivery rooms.
Interesting.
They're literally, and I know so many fathers who, when their wives were delivering, they were really, but it's a battle. They were fighting to be there by their, with their wives and their girlfriends, and they were told you can't be there.
Wow.
Can you believe
that? I can believe that.
It is so sad. When you were talking, I was thinking of all these things, especially when you hit the word intimacy and the importance of also kind of reassurance to the child, that kind of environment that you create during the birthing. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes maybe the hospital or the care facility has had an issue where maybe the dad was too overbearing or they got in the way, and then they just make this blanket rule that nobody's allowed in, and that it's horrible because that woman that's giving birth, there's so much comfort in knowing that your partner is there with you, especially when they're trained and they know exactly what you're going through. We train like certain pressure points to touch on the mother during hypnosis that create more oxytocin to be opened up. So it's all built into the education of it. So having that person there, they're helping you, but they can only help you if they're educated and they know what's going on. Not only, some births don't go through birthing classes and they can still help because they have that synergy with each other. But that is really sad that they don't allow them in. And that needs to be changed. Mm-hmm.
It does. It really needs to be changed. It's not okay. It's really not okay. And then, I don't want to go into, what that means for the father in the long term, but, and then, all these things develop, and then, there's all this, blame game going on. But, I want to be respectful of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I just have one question. I came across a terminology, and it is called soul parenting. I don't know what this is. Have you come across this terminology, soul parenting?
I've never heard of the terminology, but I've heard of the concept of connecting to the soul of the baby and knowing what their needs are. So as they move from milestone to milestone, you can adjust and adjust to their needs. If one of your children may need to be homeschooled instead of going to school because the children coming in are so sensitive, then you intuitively know that needs to happen for them. Or there's so many other things. If your child needs to learn piano instead of going onto the baseball field because they're more of an intellectual and they need to, practice both sides of their hemispheres of their brain, knowing that about the child. As we move into the next phase of our world, we're going to have that soul parenting that you talked about. It's going to blow up, for lack of better terms. And I know I have a good friend named Sherry Div Band, and she's on YouTube as well. And I believe her website is named sherrydivband.com. And she connects with these children that have been labeled with autism and all of these things. Autism it's shot through the roof. And we're not going to get into that because we're going to keep this more of a light conversation. But I only want to say is that folks in the Amish folks in the U.S., they don't use electricity. They don't succumb to anything medical. They don't have any autism in their. They have like maybe less than 1% autistic tendencies in the children that they birth. And I'm going to leave it there. You do your own research about that. Yeah. But we are going to move back to that Amish mentality of natural birthing, natural parenting, soul guidance when you're parenting. And it's going to be phenomenal because the children coming in, they are exceptional. They are amazing. And they will come in without that veil. They will come in without like the block of not knowing who they are and where they came from. So my son, our firstborn, he looked at me one day. He's like, I remember being in your belly. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. What color was it? And he said, it was red, mommy. And I was like,
you had a red belly.
Yeah, when I was in your belly, I saw red, and I was like, interesting. And you know, when you put your finger on a flashlight and you see your finger is just, it automatically becomes red. It was pretty interesting that he brought that up. So they come in and they know things, and they talk about telepathy, and they talk about things, and it's amazing. And so we are bringing in that generation in onto the planet now. And they are going to expect us to know certain things about life, about the esoterics of life. And we just we have to keep up for them. So that's what I'm ushering in to the planet. I'm one of many. So, you know, if what I always say, and I always, instead of selling my website, I always talk about other people's purpose, because I think that's my purpose is so important for me. You have a purpose on your own, and your purpose could just be being here. But if you have a tug to become a doula or a midwife, I'm not a doula or a midwife. I do more of the online information and the teaching. But if you have a desire that you want to bring to the world, start working on it, because a pocket of people need to hear it, and they need to hear it from you. They don't need to hear it from anyone else. So Faith, I'm so happy you have this platform, because certain people are connected to your vibration and you're offering this. We're not saying that you have to create a YouTube channel and do all the things and, you know, record, and because that can be a lot, but maybe you start blogging, or you create something where you're, you know, sharing information from a written perspective, and you don't have to be on camera and things like that. Or maybe you're making jewelry, you put the picture of the jewelry online, and you just start to share, because that is the future that we're moving into. That is the golden age, that is the ascension, and that's the great awakening. And I just wish, and I hope for everyone, that you find your purpose in life. My purpose is what I learned, and I learned it really late in life. So let it happen when it's supposed to happen. If it hasn't happened yet, it could happen 5, 10, 20 years from now, and that's okay. But you're here. Everyone is like a snowflake signature. There's no snowflakes that are identical. So you have this beautiful gift, and share it with the world.
Yeah, I love that, because knowledge is really power. And what you don't know, you just don't know. And, you know, I know people say ignorance is bliss, but I disagree. What you don't know will harm you. It will impact you, it will affect you, you know, and it could shift your trajectory as well, you know, just because you just didn't know. You're innocent in not knowing, but you didn't know, you know. Dayna, this was so interesting. And I have one last question. We have one leg out the door, but I just have to ask this, because I want people to pick this, you know, on the way out. For those women who are struggling with fertility and with conception, what are some of the things that they can do to, and are also feeling disconnected to the spiritual side of things? You know, what are some of the things that they can do to just make it work? Because we're running out of time. Yeah.
Okay, there's a handful of things that I go over in the classes, but what I can share right now is something you could start today. Yeah. Journaling. So one of the biggest things that you can do is to journal. Now, when you journal to a spirit baby, it's almost like automatic writing. You want to ask a question with your dominant hand, and then you want to put the pen in your less dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, you put the pen in your left hand, and you allow the answer to flow. And it'll look like a 2-year-old wrote it, because you're not used to writing in that hand. Yeah. But it's going to tap into the other side of your brain, basically. And most of us are right-handed, which means we're left-brained, we're analytical, but you want to tap into the right side of the brain. So you would use your left hand to answer, and you'll create answers that you don't know where they came from, but they just come, and they're beautiful. And that's more of a spiritual aspect that you can tap into. Being out in nature is huge. Mother Nature wants to help every woman on the planet create, because Mother Nature creates and provides a home, and creates a home for the animals, for the plants, for us. So going into Mother Nature, depending on the weather, if you can, earth with bare feet on, you know, rock, sand, grass, stone, that is just, it's magical, completely magical. And making sure that you're creating the soil necessary for the womb. The womb is like a bed of soil. So you want it to be as fertile as possible. So getting as much nutrients in there is vital. So we talked about magnesium, all 102 minerals, and that could come from your diet. It could come from, dark leafy greens. Again, I'm not a nutritionist, but if you feel like you need to do a parasite cleanse or you need to detox, go with that feeling and move through it, because you need both. You need the body aspect, but also the spiritual aspects. And if you have any questions, you can also reach out to me. I have a new email address because I have a new website. It's Dayna@DaynaRuben.com, and that's DaynaRuben.com. You'll have these in the links. And I have, very inexpensive services on my website, $18, and it goes up to low 100s for the spiritual fertility. But I have a ton of videos, and I keep them short, between anywhere from 8 minutes to 10 or 20 minutes if it's not an interview. And I try to just get to the point, because I know I don't have time to listen to long videos. And when I do, I'm doing
you're multitasking.
The mom things. Yeah, I'm doing the laundry while I'm listening to an hour interview. But just the automatic writing is one of the very first things you can do. Also, you can wake up in the morning and listen to a meditation and connect with the baby at that time. You did mention the folks that have already had the births, had the traumatic births, things like that. I created a free YouTube video. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see it in the playlist, and it's childbirth trauma meditation. I believe I created it for that, and that's for women that are not going to have babies, or maybe you're done having babies. You had that traumatic birth, or maybe you're trying to grow your family and you just have to get past that traumatic birth, because that might be blocking the fertility. So I created a free meditation on my YouTube channel for that. I also created a Ho'oponopono, which is a ancient Hawaiian practice of forgiving anything that has happened to you from a fertility standpoint, and that's also on my YouTube channel for free. So Ho'oponopono is I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, and I built in a fertility infertility release to that. And I infuse that in the meditation. So that's also on my website to, kind of get a taste for what I offer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, your work is so timely. Yeah. So Dayna, I want to thank you so much for today. It was such a wonderful conversation. Thank you for coming on. And to all our listeners, thank you for stopping by. All of Dayna Ruben information is going to be in the description. So make sure to stop by, check in, have a look. And it may not be for you, but it could be for your sister, for your mother, for your brother. The guys can also share it with their wives and their girlfriends and all that stuff. So have a look, take a sneak peek and see what floats your boat. And then, write to Dayna, just write, just connect people, do it. She doesn't bite. She's pretty cool. Yeah. So, and we want to thank her so much for today. Dayna, I'll let you have the last word and then we will head out.
Oh, thank you so much for that. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and to share this time and to be on your channel, Faith. And when it comes to, family planning, family growth, there's two partners involved, and it's just like the wings of a dove. So the mother is one wing and the father is another wing, and they both have to fly in unison. Both wings are flying at the same time in order to move forward. So if there's something lacking in one area, help each other get to that place. There is a lot of male infertility as well, which we didn't even talk about today.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah. We didn't talk about that.
As we move forward, 70%, and this is something that I've received from my higher self, 70% of the issues in infertility come from the male aspect. And that could be having the cell phone right next to your pocket, and the Wi-Fi is actually bringing down the sperm count. That's how easy it could be to stop putting your phone in your pocket. And then also detoxing. And for the men to connect with their divine masculinity. And everyone has divine masculine and divine feminine. So bringing that together.
Yeah.
So connecting to the divine feminine and the divine masculine, allow that to happen in Mother Nature. If you could get out in nature as much as possible, that is going to help. And for those of you that whether you just started your fertility journey or you've been in it for 10 years or more, I like to call it 50 shades of fertility or infertility. I try to connect to all of those points because I know they're all there. And I wouldn't consider myself infertile because I wasn't really married, in that race towards fertility, towards having a baby, but I get it. So I get that waiting patiently for the baby to come. So just if you have a tug of that baby on your heartstrings, know that there's a baby on the other side of that. For those of the women that have had hysterectomies, I can't guarantee that there is innovative products coming out in the forefront, but don't give up the fact that maybe there's something that's called a med bed that could help you regrow that organ and bring you back into the ability to have children. Because I see it and it's coming. It sounds wild, but if you can believe it and you still have a yearning for that, it could be possible. Also, adoption, which we didn't talk about, sometimes that when they tug on your heartstrings, it's actually from an adoption perspective. The baby wanted certain genetics, which maybe or maybe you don't have, maybe not, but they wanted that, but you had the contract with them. So don't give up on that either. And just don't give up on your dreams, no matter what it is, whether it's having a family, becoming a mother or father. And I would love to be a part of that to help you get there to that next level. So yeah, but just like Faith said, reach out to me. I'd love to help. I'd love to help you out.
Okay. Thank you so much. And that was our smart sister, Dayna. Until next time.
Evenings come, stars are twinkle, dinner on the stove. We talk about our dreams and plans, the future.